or in the future. My name is David Hurdle, and today I'm chatting with Brian Decastro, Reiki Master and Health and Wellness Coach, and we're going to be talking about how to achieve your goals. Both of us have been exercise, nutrition, and wellness and spirituality for over 20 years, and we've worked with a lot of people and seen a lot of people over the years. And we've been trying to help them achieve their goals, and we've definitely seen where a lot of people have gone wrong and gone right. And so we're going to talk about that today, because being in the health and wellness industry, we see a lot of people that come to us that want to achieve something. They either want to lose weight, or they want to feel better, or have more energy, or there's just something that they like to achieve. And there's, common mistakes and barriers that people kind of hit as they go along through the process. And so we're going to talk about that today. And so welcome, Brian. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me back. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to this, and we got a fair bit to kind of chip away at, but I think it'll be a lot of fun kind of working together and chatting it up on some of these cool topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe we'll start off with just sort of the process of goal setting itself. So if you're watching, just think about something that you want to achieve, something that you're working towards, and see if you can apply it to what we talk about today. So I think where I see people go wrong in the beginning, or maybe not wrong, but just being not aware of what's happening in terms of the actual goal setting process itself. I see a lot of people come in with goals that don't mean anything, right? I've seen a lot of people that come in and, why are you here? Oh, my wife told me I needed to do this, or, my doctor told me I needed to do this, which maybe they're right. But you can tell the person's just they haven't bought in. And the value isn't there for them. And finding the reason that you want to buy in has to come from you. Like, there has to be a reason. And so what we're talking about here is just intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation, right? Is the motivation coming from yourself, or is it coming from an outside source? And you'd be surprised how many people come into the gym and or for nutrition or coaching or whatever, and they're just there because it's pressure from someone else, or it's just something they think they have to do. And so as coaches, we have to help them sort of buy in so they can find their own sort of pure motivation, something that means something to them. And I think what that means realistically is you just have to really know your priorities, and the goals that you set have to sort of be in line with that. And what means a lot to you. And so working with people I've definitely seen over the years, they don't have that sort of clear value of what is the hierarchy of what means something to them. Like, if you ask me what means something to me, I can say definitely my health is always at the top. I can say, I definitely see myself as a loving husband, and my relationship is at the top. And so those two things being at the top of my priority list, whatever goals I set usually have to be sort of in alignment with that, because those are the things that mean the most to me in life. And so learning to find the meaning in what you're doing and asking yourself, when you set a goal, how much does this actually mean to me? Like, it's a very important question, because when you ask yourself that and sit with that for a little bit, you might find that some of the things that you keep telling yourself you should be doing don't actually have a lot of value. And so it's still maybe something that you need to do, especially when it comes to your health, but it's how can you find the value in that? And I think finding the personal meaning in the internal motivation for something that you want, I think is something that maybe a lot of people just miss in the beginning. They're just sort of going on autopilot, and they know they have to do something, but they don't really know why. And, you've got to find that meaning and how valuable it is to you, and sort of buy into that process. Maybe if you don't have it in the beginning, that's where we as coaches can kind of help come in, but just knowing your goal and how much does this really mean to you, I think really gives a clear picture of how much you're going to put into this. Because the goals that are real for you and are true and have strong meaning, you're going to put a lot more into it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the first, I think that's for, at least for me, that's where I see a lot of people in the beginning veer. And once you can kind of get them on board with that, a lot of things fall into place after that. Okay. Yeah. So how about you, Brian? So when you see people and they come, they say, I want to do this or I want to do that. Where do you start with people, and where do you see them fall off?
Yeah, just to bridge from where you were coming from there is I'll ask questions and with regards to like what might be your immediate goals, because those are the ones that are in the forefront that might bring them right into the office or bring them right into our world and start looking for help. But then I'll push a little bit more and say, if you had it all your way in 90 days, what would that look like? Right? And quite often they haven't been asked that question before. And then I might even, if they're willing to go into that, okay, 1 year from now, what does that look and feel like? Right? Like you've maintained your progress, and how does that change your life? What's the impact? Right? That helps me get a little bit more into what really makes them tick. Right? So yeah, just in addition to what you were just saying there, I think that's something I tend to go into now with everyone when we first start.
Yeah. So if you see someone that comes in and they want to start and you can see they're not genuine with what they want, like, do you have that much, or like?
Sometimes, and I might poke that a little bit, but sometimes I'll also just leave it, because if I'm trying to push them somewhere they don't even know possible to go, then I'm gonna lose them, right? So give them what they want. You want to lose 25 pounds in the next 6 months, let's hammer out. We both know that all kinds of stuff's going to come up from that,
right?
We're holding them accountable, right?
Yeah.
Logging, checking off workouts, sleeping, all the things that are required. It's going to flush out all the other stuff that we could get into in the first session. Right. Yes. But I take it as a message, a subconscious message that they want to come at a specific pace, and you try to match that pace.
Right.
Because you want them to feel comfortable and at ease coming to see you, not stressed out.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Okay. So, so I mean, in terms of that, so you look at where the client is at, and then you just start them right there.
I think also people get anxious about, one of my points here is people get anxious about, where do I start? What do I do? Like, what do I do first? They're overwhelmed. They've had enough courage to call us up and step in, right? So I meet them right exactly where they're at. I could even go as far as, how did your morning look today? Like, walk me through the steps. And then here we are, it's 1 p.m. Okay, you got here. So based on everything you told me, this is what I think like your morning seems to take off as. How could you rewrite that script to support your goals? Like, and then we work on it together. We just start building out their program in real time in their existing situation.
Yeah.
And I always say, just start, and think of whatever it is that you can do within the next 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
Because anything bigger than that is going to be often too overwhelming.
Yeah, for sure.
So in the first chat we try to find the one thing that I like to call I got this from another friend actually, is the first domino that you push over to create the momentum, right? So what is the first domino? And then we start with that, and it might be go to bed before 10:30. All right, let's do that for the next 10 days and see what happens.
Right.
Indeed, something will happen. they'll have breakthroughs, mini breakthroughs in that 10-day period. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's usually 24 to 48 hours. What can we change that one thing? As long as they've got the buy-in and they're ready to commit, massive stuff can happen in those first 10 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe let's talk about the buy-in and the commitment, and mindset. Like, how do you get someone to sort of have that buy-in when they haven't fully 100% commit to the process? Like, how do you help a person through that?
I think it's the questions we ask, open-ended questions that allows them to share a little bit more. A part of it is like actively listening, and like I'm constantly taking notes when they're talking, because I want to stay in the conversation and bullet point things so I can navigate the conversation, capture a theme of what they're experiencing, and then be able to relay it back to them. I learned this from a coach that mentored me, saying, you're a really good listener, but make sure you tell them what you heard.
Right? Yeah.
So after we listen to them and they get to tell their story, you check in on, let me see if I heard this correctly. Is this what you're needing from me? Or is this a support that you require?
Yeah.
And when they say yes, they feel they don't need to tell the story anymore. And they're ready to move to the next step.
Yeah.
And that's how the mindset shifts a little bit to like, okay, what do we do? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they know that you hear them and that you understand them.
Yeah.
And it's all clear. There's no disconnect.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So in terms of goals, there's always, most people tend to be really focused on the result, at least is what I've noticed.
Yeah.
They come in and they've got this thing that they want to achieve, yet there's still this entire process that they have to take or go through to get them to that result.
Yeah.
And more often than not, they're not fully aware of what we've seen over the years and what a person has to go through to actually get to where they want to go. There might be so much more as a part of the process to get them there. And so how do you help keep a person motivated sort of to buy into the process when that process is not at all matching what their expectation is or what they think should be, or, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Early in my career, maybe even later in my career too, I resisted this at first, delivering or attempting to deliver quick wins or fast results.
Right.
But I understand that there are quick wins people can pick up within days of starting.
Yeah.
You just have to make them present to it. That's why I like the one habit. Let's work on one habit in the next 10 days. And then I keep asking them self-awareness type questions. What do you know? Right? Because then they start to really experience themselves in a different way. Right? Then all those little wins accumulate to like a realistic 30 or 40 day goal or target, which might mean they've lost a few pounds in the first month. Right? Because all of those little habits they were doing led to the result, right? Then you span out to like 90 days. You might call it a checkpoint or a base camp milestone or something in the 90 days that now checks off, okay, here's a great place to hang for a bit. And let's like reflect on what we've accomplished or what you've accomplished and look at where do you want to take the next 3 to 6 months.
Right.
Now that you've opened some doors. I also had this with one of our transformational groups. People are now realizing things that they have access to because their health has improved that they didn't realize in the very beginning. Right? 20 pounds, 25 pounds are gone now. And I'm like, I didn't realize all this was available, or I didn't even comprehend that this was possible for me until I'm here now. So it's a great place to kind of like check in and go, Now that you know it's possible, what are your goals? You know, so then they might book a trip, or they might have a plan to go water skiing or something, or
Yeah.
whatever. Like they just want to try their new body, their new physicality out, right? And
Right.
or they're inspired to contribute in some way because they have the energetic resources, right? So
Right.
that's how I find it unfolds, addressing things right away that can change in the short term, but also being ahead of them with those checkpoints.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
to be the fire going, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, that's definitely all for sure. I mean, so in terms of the process versus the result, I think some people, I mean, they're both important, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think they're both a part of the process, or both a part of the overall sort of picture, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But I think some people get so stuck on the results that and this, I mean, this is definitely what I did when I was younger. I wasn't listening to my body because I was so focused on the results,
Yeah.
or I wasn't doing the check-ins, like you said, right? And I think that's definitely a good, important part of the process, is to like check in as you're going on to make adjustments. Excuse me. But in general, what I find people keeps to keep the buy-in high uh, is to try and make the process as fun as possible.
Yeah.
Really, just it's about enjoying the process, because I mean, there are going to be times when you're going to be stuck and you'll have to go through barriers. But in general, the whole process should be something that you enjoy, and finding ways to make it a little bit more fun and enjoyable along the way. Because if you've got a goal that's, 30, 60, 90 days a year, or even you're going way ahead past a year, and then you're, the client's thinking, oh my God, I don't enjoy this already, and I've got to do this for right, for another year. Like, where's the carrot to dangle in front of them? The result may not always hold enough weight to keep them motivated. But so yeah, keeping the process enjoyable, and kind of like what you touched on was just celebrating the little wins.
Yeah.
As you go along, I think those small wins actually are huge. Like, there's a lot of value in them, and reinforcing that by celebrating and congratulating, and just like even having clients do that to themselves. Because I think what I've seen is people will achieve a small goal, but don't really realize how important that is, or how that magnifies by even holding that behavior over the long term.
Yeah.
Like the amount of change that can make in their life just by doing small little changes. And we see that because we've been at it a long time. But I don't think people see that. And so reinforcing the process that they're going through by celebrating, I think. So those are the two things that I see. And then in terms of, I guess, focusing on the end result, it's good. But it just shouldn't be everything. That's all I'm saying, really.
It's kind of like your guiding light. And I think the challenge we have in our industry is they think the end result is a certain body weight or something like that. But I always ask, then what happens when you get to your perfect body weight, or what do you want to call it? Because you and I have experienced, getting shredded or whatever, or getting to a certain point in our performance related goals and realizing you can only hold it for about 2 weeks. And then what happens?
Yeah. And then you rebound.
Take some selfies really quick. And then all of a sudden it just kind of goes back to a more relaxed state, right? So meaningful goals, but also I feel like as coaches, we need to recognize when we're having a results conversation or a process conversation with their clients. And sometimes when they're frustrated, they might be frustrated with results. Then we can check in on the results if we're monitoring the data correctly and effectively and accurately. So we can speak to the results and goes, according to the results, you're doing everything right. And we're actually seeing your weight trend down.
Yeah.
It goes up and down, but it's trending in the right direction. What else do you need right now? What kind of support do you need right now? And then they might just express some frustration or whatever. Now we've just flipped to a process conversation.
Right.
Where now we're processing the anxiousness, the the frustration or the repetition or whatever it is that we go through in the day to day. There can be something that bugged them in the morning, like something happened to their dog in the morning or something.
Yeah.
It can be anything that needs to just get off their chest, right? But I think the idea with the process side of things is it allow the importance of that is the consistency, right? We need to keep them in a consistent place
Yeah.
in order to produce results they might be frustrated about or might be moving towards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that consistency is probably one of the most important things, and keep, regardless of your, like, there's going to be highs and lows emotionally along the way. Even with the results, you're going to slide on, slide off, but over time, the consistency, if you just keep doing it and you're feeling low and down, but you go in and do it anyways, and you're feeling high, but then you go in and do it anyways, like, you just keep doing it. And over time, that consistency, I think, is the most important thing. And I mean, I've definitely changed some of how I work with my clients' goals in the beginning, from when I started my career. A lot of the times now, independent of any type of goal that they have with their lifestyle, I'll just give them X number of, let's say, exercise sessions per week for a 3-month period.
Yeah.
That's the goal. The goal is to establish the consistency and the habit, because the habit is what keeps you going in the long term. And even if, there'll be some little wins along the way, but the win I try and have them focus on is that consistency. Because there's an old version of yourself that wants to do things in a way that's maybe not the best. And to change that old version of yourself takes consistency. It takes repetition. As you get comfortable with the new version of you that's doing all these things, that process mentally, I find, takes more time than most people realize. Because when you change your habits, you are actually changing yourself. And you may have to change things in your lifestyle now to support that habit. And I guess that leads into the next point is on the process, the letting go.
Just to speak to what you were saying there as well is consistency is boring.
It is. It's not exciting.
And the ego loves drama.
Yeah.
So after the honeymoon phase, the first 30 or 40 days, things level off and you're in consistent mode. The ego or the subconscious mind, and this is more into the barriers conversation, so I won't spoil it for everyone. But, it's important to understand that if it's working, don't mess with it, right? And that's what the consistency, the discipline, right? Over time is what lays down the groundwork for this to be a long-term solution, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Being happy with the consistency, even though it's not as exciting as the mind maybe wants it to be, but it's definitely a thing. So in terms of changing lifestyle habits, like, if you're gonna maybe change what you eat in the morning, you may have to set the alarm, or you may have to reorganize how you do your morning routine with your family, or if you're going to bed earlier, then that all of a sudden affects people around you as well. And you may have to turn the TV off early or shut down emails early, like whatever the lifestyle habit is, it's never in isolation. It's always going to be effective of something else in your life or other people in your life. And so I think that's one of the things that, at least as a coach, kind of gives me an idea of a person's level of commitment to what they're doing. Because when you can make suggestions to someone about how they can reorganize things, and it's still efficient and it still works for them, but then you see the hesitation. I know I've had people that I've worked with, and they were instantly fine with not seeing friends anymore because they were that committed to wanting to get their health better, and all of their friends would go to bars or smoke or drink. And this, some of the people that I work with are like, okay, I'm ready to, I can, be friends with him later, but for now, like, I just gotta do this. And so they were able to let go, and that shows how, how much they've really bought into it and how much they're committed to what they're doing. But maybe we can speak to how to navigate someone who has to make changes that affects their life and there are other people around them, but they're still hesitant maybe for those reasons, right? Because it's not only about them.
Yeah, there's in one of my points about being clear on where you're headed, right? What we don't realize is that when we hit these little checkpoints or base camps and stuff, there's a moment where we are there's a shift there's an opportunity to shift in identity.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's you're not changing who you really are, but you're upgrading. Right?
Good way to look at it.
And what'll happen is, and you mentioned friends, you might start upgrading or changing your tribe to support the people you need to be around to stay consistent and be this new version of yourself, right? There's friends I used to hang out with in high school that I do not hang out with now, simply because we're just different people.
Right.
Back then there was a fit, but as we get on with our lives, we get into different things. And I found for example, when I made the first team in high school, my friend circle changed almost immediately. It changed where I went to eat at lunch in the cafeteria. Right. So, knowing, like, in those big level, high level questions we ask, the 6 months out, 12 months out, where do you see yourself, remembering where you're headed, right? And knowing why you want to go there. We are there to help them navigate the time when they realize that maybe friends I'm hanging around, I love them, but I got to spend less time, at least for now. And you got to let them know what you're up to, so they know that you're making these decisions for a very important reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have to do it. They don't have to do it with you, but they have to understand that this is important, and that you might need their support, or you might just decide you don't tell them this. Maybe you don't tell them this, but you might just decide that, I'm just going to spend less time around them and more time around the people that are more like-minded. Right.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think what you just said there is probably one of the most important points in terms of how, when you change, it affects other people, is just simply keeping them in the loop. It seems like a small thing when you say it that way, but when you start doing things differently, other people are used to behaving around you in a certain way. And when you're no longer behaving or acting that way, sometimes they just don't know what's going on.
Something I learned that was very significant was, if you make a change that's very maybe profound for you, and then you start behaving and being a different way around someone like as close as you as, like, say, your spouse or immediate family members.
Yeah.
They are now experiencing themselves in a different way around this different version of you.
Yep.
And they have zero control over that. So it's really uncomfortable for them.
Yep.
Because they don't know how to be around you in this new version, right? It's neither good or bad. It's just what it is, and I think being able to communicate and connect over what that experience is, so there's no pressure for the other person to make changes they're not comfortable with, right? But it's also an adjustment for maybe the relationship that, on Saturday nights, I'm going to be more often wanting to do this than what we used to be doing.
Right.
But I'm okay to leave that part in because I know it's important to you, but I will also want to do some of this because I think it's good for my health, or it's, whatever it is. Right. And it's part of holding the space for each other in a way that allows them to be where they're at. Right.
Yeah. And from like, if I'm working with a client, from that client's perspective, sometimes the change they think they're going to make is going to be a very big deal for the people around them, and sometimes it's actually not.
Yeah.
And like I was working with a woman who, and she can't function well on heavy protein diet, yet her husband really loves like meat. And she does well on lighter foods, and she know her body responds well to that. Yet at dinners all the time, it was making whatever he wanted to make for dinner. And I was like, you can just have your dinner and have his dinner. And she thought it would be a big deal for them not to have the same thing.
Yeah.
Just in her mind, she hadn't communicated to him. And once she finally was like, I'm just going to make my dinner and your dinner, and it was like the easiest thing. But in her head, it was like she hadn't communicated what she wanted to do with someone that was very close to her. So I think keeping that communication, even for the small things, for the people that wanted make the changes and achieve their goals, sometimes it's actually not a big deal to the people around you at all. I mean, it can go both ways, right? So
yeah.
And then just on I know we're going to talk about a little bit about this later, but as soon as you communicate what you're doing to people around you, you are also now accountable to them, and that can be your own barrier. Because I had a lady I'm working with, and she's trying to quit the smoking a little bit, and she knows her trigger is always at a party when she's around other people, and I'm like, she's asking for suggestions, and I'm like, it's the buddy system. Just have someone there. If you in situations when you are not accountable for yourself, have someone you can rely on. And it's like, just tell people, this is what you're trying to do. This is why you're trying to do it. Can you please help me? When you ask it in that way, most people are generally going to be fine with it.
Yeah.
And I could tell right away. She was like, no, that means I'll have to do it. Oh my God. Like, I just can't talk about it now. Right.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's just when you make these little changes, there's ripple effects.
Yeah.
And I think it's just being aware of the ripple effects and how you can negotiate those with proper communication, I think is very, very helpful in the process for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of getting your goals and keeping sort of focused on the goal, or maybe having changing goals. I've noticed a lot of people they fluctuate, or they're not clear on what happens. Like one day they come in and they want to do this, and then a few weeks later it changes, but they just don't have that clarity. It's just like their mind's sort of all over the place. Like how do you keep someone, and how do you get someone to be clear on a goal who's maybe not so clear? They know they need to do something, but it's just like the vision is vague. Or
the one thing that I've been using more than ever recently is having some sort of tangible, measurable tracking process that they can choose how much they want to use. It's up to them. It's their journey. But I've had clients complain about results before, and without the data, I can't show it to them. Right. One time I had a client get up off the rowing machine after she warmed up and said, let's go in the room. Let's take your 3-month pictures. And then I showed her the pictures. I literally put them into like an app, and I put them right next to each other, the day 0 and the day 90. And she's like, oh, yeah, you lost a bunch of weight. Like, look at the picture, and it's fully clothed, and you could totally see.
It is obvious. Yeah.
Right. So we sometimes perceive ourselves differently than what is reality. Right. So part of it is having those measurable things that you can actually track. And I think it's up to the coach to make sure that we're on top of that. Just like how an accountant or a business coach might keep you accountable to your numbers. Just checking in on where things are at. Right. With regards to the frustration along the way, it comes back to that consistency part that we were talking about before. But like, I think just checking in. One of the things that I do is there's a couple things that I mentioned. One is adjusting expectations. If there's a deadline coming up, like for me, it was, a powerlifting deadline competition. If I get sick 1 week out of the 6 weeks of the the peaking phase, I might have to adjust my expectations on what I'm going to do at the meet, right? Which is totally fine. It reduces the stress and allows you to continue focusing. So with a client, say you got like a wedding coming up or whatever, you had a couple bad weeks, but the dress, alterations are coming up. So let's adjust expectations so that you still have a good time on this process leading up to it. The added pressure that's unrealistic can make it really miserable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other thing I do is I have I created a tool. I actually created it when we're at the Granite, and it's called the pre-workout evaluation, self-evaluation, and you're just checking in on like where are you at physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually before the workout. And you can generate in seconds, you can generate a quick score. And the score, when you look at it, it indicates, depending on your score, it indicates what you should do that day. So if it's supposed to be a high intensity strength, whatever day, but you do your pre-workout evaluation and the stress points are really high.
Yeah.
We just follow it. It says you're supposed to do mobility when your score is like this. So let's just recalibrate, give your body what it needs. Because I could see the anxiety on your face right now about doing CrossFit today, even though it was on the schedule. Let's do this mobility. Guaranteed in the next 2 days, you're going to be ready to go, right? Yeah. And that's usually what happens. I usually keep myself out of overtraining in the past. So this keeps your head clear, both in the real time, day to day, but also knowing that you're still heading in the long term in the right direction, right? It makes the process more pleasant.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, being sort of, having the goals and the deadlines can be motivating, but it can also, like you said, be a little crushing if it's overdone and you don't allow for that flexibility and malleability, right?
The timelines make it real.
Yeah.
It really makes it real, or else it's just a dream sometimes, right? But we also have to look at it and go, is this a life or death thing, right? And let's make adjustments so you're still having fun.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. So over time, I guess we talked about it a little bit before, is consistency, but in terms of the goal setting process itself, one of the questions I get people to ask themselves is what they're doing sustainable.
Yeah.
I never really used to ask that question before, because definitely everybody sort of marketed to and sold the achieve your, in 12 weeks you can have everything you want, right? That's pretty much every commercial for every diet book and exercise program. Achieve it all in 12 weeks, and we know the human body is so much more complicated than that, right? So there's the discrepancy between what the mind wants and what the body has the capacity to handle and adjust and adapt to. And the checking in, but the main thing is just sustainability, and it's like the consistency, right? It's not maybe as exciting, but if you can honestly look at yourself as your goal and say, what I'm doing now, I can wake up and do tomorrow, and I can wake up and do the day after. Once you're in that mode of, I'm just fine to continue doing this, and I'm fine with that, and it just becomes a lifestyle habit, then I think that's where that's sort of like the golden point to get people to where, and then because when it's like that, you also become more autonomous. And you become, now it's good to have people to help you in the beginning, but you also, like we said, we want to have that intrinsic motivation. And once you kind of get to that point where you just know this is a sustainable habit, it becomes more autopilot. You don't have to put so much effort into it and thinking about it. And then once you get to that with even a small habit, like drinking water in the morning or having breakfast or whatever, then that's sort of when I gauge people are ready for the next, because you can keep building one upon the other, right?
I think one of the things I call is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
The sweet spot is where you're getting in, you're doing the work, and you're getting challenged enough, but you're also recovering from it. and the consistent progress is more evident than if you're overtraining and having these massive expectations, or you're under training or not doing the work or being inconsistent with the work, can really lead to a lot of frustration. So realistic and sustainable, I share a lot with people. Like, is this realistic in your existing life? You have 5 children and you have a business and you and your spouse both work, and you have 2 of your 5 children are young ones. So like, what is realistic and sustainable in this situation? And let's optimize within that situation. Let's optimize within your lifestyle what is realistic and sustainable, and you'll find that their results start to accelerate when they're in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And it might go from trying to come in or work out 4 times a week to effectively training consistently twice a week and just doing walks in the middle those days. And it just ends up changing everything.
It does, for sure.
Right? And I find that that's why, as lifestyle coaches, that I like to call us, you know, we're actually helping them redesign their lifestyle to fit, or also we're also designing the program to fit inside of their situation. Right. So that's the stuff I really actually enjoy doing with people, because everyone's lifestyle is a little bit different. There's different things going on. Right. So you take all the variables and you go, okay, how do we make a workout happen in this schedule? Right. Or how do we get you to sleep earlier? Right. And quite often I'm working with them to produce the plan, and just basically encouraging them along the way when they get uptight about screwing up the plan a little bit. Like, it's all right, totally normal. Like, you're not going to be perfect, right? Just stay on course, right? So that optimization within the existing situation is pretty key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so maybe let's move on to sort of barriers. I mean, those are sort of the things we look at in terms of helping to achieve your goals, but there's always going to be roadblocks on the way. There's always things that come up, either externally or internally, that we've kind of got to help navigate people through. So yeah, where do you start with, you know, maybe what's a common roadblock that you hit with a lot of your clients?
I think a lot of it, which is pretty consistent with people, is bringing past situations into the present situation. So one of the questions I go through to clear that is you know, you mentioned before that it was really consistent. You were in the best shape of your life and whatever. What happened to cause that to pause, or what happened to set you back? Like, actually just bring the story forward so I can note it and look for it, because it's going to happen again. But be prepared to support them through it, right? And because I'll ask them, what typically tends to happen when you fall off track? Oh, I let work get in the way. Quite often I overtrain a lot, I get injured, or like whatever it is, the situation. So now I'm prepared to be ahead of that,
right,
with tools, so that we're not going down the same cyclical path that causes them to go through a frustrating pattern, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the signs that you're sort of in the unconscious, operating from the unconscious mind, right? Is a repetitive pattern that occurs in your life that doesn't have a good result for you, right? It's against where you want to go. And when those things keep coming up, there's definitely usually something within. I mean, for me, I've seen a lot of people, one of the biggest barriers is just either self-doubt or self-judgment. It's some people can just be really, really hard on themselves, very, very self-critical, and they focus on the failures rather than the successes. And having that is it's a point where people like to use, I don't want to say like to use, but it makes them give up.
Yeah.
Because they don't like how they feel. And how they feel is them either failing or them criticizing themselves. Or some people are just so hesitant because they don't know if they're doing things right or properly or whatever. There's just so much doubt around what they're doing that it becomes hard for them to overcome that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be doubts along the way, and you know, you're going to fall down a couple times, but that's why obviously having coaches like us can help, right? But I have found also not being comfortable in your body with when you start to change things. I mean, and I guess a classic example of this would just be not liking the feeling of exercising. Right? A lot of people actually don't like the feeling of exercising.
Yeah.
And that shies them away, or people don't like the feeling that their body gives them when they have to change their diet because maybe they're eating lots of sugar in their diet and it keeps them elevated in their mood and it keeps them stimulated. And as soon as you change that, all of a sudden that source of stimulation or emotional uplifting is taken away, and all of a sudden they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, that's that barrier, just along with the self-doubt and judgment, is just learning how to deal with what is uncomfortable physically in your body.
Yeah.
And learning to coach people and navigate past that, because it is like a workout. I mean, you come in, you're sore maybe for the first time or two, but after that, your body adjusts and adapts. And it is with anything else, even with your emotions, even with your appetite, your body adjusts and adapts. But it's keeping them at a level of sort of uncomfortableness that they can cope with and manage. Because if you give them too much, then they're gone and they're going to fall off, right? I found for barriers, I think that's probably one of the most common, is this not being comfortable in their body with how changes feel with nutrition, exercise, and sleeping.
It comes back to that identity upgrade that's happening too, right? Like, if someone's been 300 pounds their whole life and they finally get down to like 275, 270, right? And then they're creeping down towards maybe 250 is another milestone, right? And it's scary for them. You're used to being like the big guy in the room. You're everyone, like, you get different kinds of attention.
Yep.
You didn't really there was no way to prepare for that, right? The other thing is you make one little mistake and the self-doubt or the self-judgment. Sometimes I'm wondering, like, you know, checking in on whose voice is that? Where does that come from?
Yeah, excellent point.
Often it's like whether it's an upbringing thing, like maybe your parent was really strict, or maybe just this one teacher, this one coach said one thing in gym class and it resonated for you at the time, and now it's replaying itself, right? It comes back and then you buy into it. Like, one of the points I gave was past beliefs. There's a belief from the past that you accepted that and you carried it forward for whatever reason. We often don't know why we do the things that we do sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
But now it's there, right? So we're always looking for things like that. As I look at them as opportunities, right? An opportunity to break through and to experience a new version of yourself, right? Yeah. Doubt is also could be recognized. It could feel like a negative thing, but maybe doubt. The light side of doubt is challenging you because it knows you're made of. It knows what you're made of. It knows you could do more.
Yeah.
Like, doubt is challenging you to see what you're made of. So let's go for it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting how you can play on this stuff a little bit to see it from a different perspective. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That perspective and how you look at it can change a lot. Like, it can change everything in terms of the mindset. So any other barriers you've seen over the course of your career, or common roadblocks that
a big thing for me is doing it alone. Like, I mean, some might have the courage to hire a coach, work with a coach, step into that level of commitment and accountability. But I'm learning more and more, especially as things have gone online a lot, is that forming or joining communities, tribes of people, like-minded people, it works in business. So it often works really well in fitness and in health, and in a support of some kind, where there's other people, there's a safe place, where there's multiple people in a room.
Yeah.
um, there's almost exponentially more resources,
Yes, for sure.
right? So we tend to want to be like, some people tend to want to be lone soldiers and just plug away at things. And I've found in the last few years, I found it really limits people's progress and results.
It does, for sure.
Like, even if if they've hired you or myself for 1 or 2 hours a week, and they only allow us to help them inside of that 1 or 2 hours,
Yeah.
they're alone otherwise. So what's going to happen the rest of all those freaking days and hours?
Yep.
Right. So I've really made what my clients have remote access to me, right, as needed. And it's not every day. The phone's not dinging all the time, but there's times where they'll text me, or we'll have a little exercise we're doing for accountability, where it's a small little touch. I'm there. I'm in your corner, right? So when they try to do it all alone, it's just so much work. It could be overwhelming. There's so many inner subconscious barriers that are going to creep up or whatever, that
Yeah.
you need someone there to show you the mirror and go, this is what I'm seeing. Where are you at so far in the process, right? And then they can share it and clear it, right? So that's a huge one, I think.
Yeah, it is, for sure. Having a support team, rather than just a support individual. Because exactly like you said, if we're 1 or 2 hours a week, knowing the situations that you're going to be in and having people around that can support you in those situations. And again, that goes to communication and saying that to those people. But finding your tribe, I think, is one of the most important steps. It's that group momentum that keeps you going, and having other people to help you when you're down. And then it goes the other way, because then other people in the group are also going to have their challenges. And when you find you're there to help them, then when you fall down later, you're like, oh, this is the advice I gave the other person.
Maybe you realize your value. You realize like everyone has value to bring.
Yeah.
Right. And there's your sense of community, sense of contribution, sense of purpose, opportunity to be a leader.
Yeah.
There's all these things that come out from working in a group scenario.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the connections that you form.
Yeah.
That are, and when they become stronger, that changes you more, which in this case is a good thing, right? But always trying to do it alone, it's very easy to slide off, and no one's accountable. You're not accountable to anyone, so who cares, right?
Yeah. So easy to just duck and hide out and
it is.
Get anywhere, right?
No, I think that's probably one of the most important things, for sure. I found definitely, just as a category, I have noticed a group of people over the years that just they prioritize everyone or everything else but themselves.
Yeah.
I've had a number of people over the years that just have that. Mothers, a lot of mothers, for sure, that I've worked with over the years, and they feel guilty doing something for themselves. They feel like they have to be there. And now you do as a parent, but there's a line that you can cross too, where it just, now all of a sudden you're just being a martyr, or you're just suffering. Because you, so I mean, learning to prioritize yourself for some people can be a tough thing, and actually saying, look, I'm just doing this for me. And like, I've got someone in my family who was just never ever taking care of herself for years and years and years. And finally, for the first time, she's now in her 50s, took a vacation by herself for the first time ever. And it was the most amazing thing she's ever done. She's like, finally, silence, peace, and quiet. Like, I could just rest. I could read. Like, I could relax. You could just detach from all of that. And now you don't have to take a whole vacation. It can just be 10 minutes. Like, even finding a small block of time in the day where this is just my time and this is for me, because you have to be there for you. Like, you've got to be able to love yourself enough to make yourself a priority, because over the long term, if your health goes down and your vitality goes down, then you really can't be there for other people.
Yeah.
Because you're just tired and you're frustrated and you've got a short fuse, and how you interact with those other people that you want to help and support, that gets compromised.
It catches up too, right? Like, I think it comes back to like what I try to share with people who are compulsively busy or addicted to being busy all the time.
Yeah.
People are just naturally just doers, right?
Yeah.
Which, you know, sometimes I'll tell them, what you need to do is take a day off.
Yeah.
But I add the word do in there. So they're actually doing something, right? Yeah. But I might have to provide them with still something to do that's maybe restorative, that's gonna allow their AAA type personality to be okay with doing it. But the other thing is reinforcing that if you find your purpose is to serve in this way and serve through these organizations or volunteer groups or whatever it is, that it requires life force, right? And if you are not managing your life force, and only you can, if you're not managing your life force, you can't show up for these people that mean so much to you.
Yeah.
The best way you can. Like, would you not want to show up in your best way possible? And show up for your family when you get home, right? So,
yeah.
Getting them in a way that is important to them, like reframing it in a way that's important to them.
Yeah. Finding the meaning in that, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I had a guy once. He had a heart attack, and what he everything he had to do for his own health, he had to attach that to his kids. Now,
yeah,
he wasn't willing to do it before the heart attack, and he wasn't really willing to do it with himself. But now all of a sudden that he realized he may not be there for their kids.
Yeah.
That was the meaningful motivation that he used to help himself.
Yeah.
And now we just don't want people to get to that point where they have a heart attack to finally wake up. It's unfortunately that people get to that point. But yeah, and if you're service oriented, using whatever your goals are, so you can be there as a better service or caregiver or whatever, right? So back to the busyness and the time management, because I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers, especially just the way society is today. It's just busy all the time.
Yeah.
How do you, because that's a big barrier. People just don't believe or think that they have the time, and they're just too busy. So how do you help people negotiate that?
One of the tools I use is a lifestyle audit.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll say it's sometimes comforting for them to say, look, don't change anything. We can, I recognize already by how you're explaining it that there is a lot going on in your life right now. Let's not change anything. Let's just observe for the next at least 3 days, but for maybe the next week, observe what's happening, like hour by hour, as often as you can remember to do so. Just observe what's happening. Be present to what's happening in every moment of your life. If in your lifestyle, where are the openings? Where are the opportunities where you're losing time, losing energy in a way that it can maybe be replaced with something else, restorative, right?
Right.
Where are you losing? Like, if you're really busy, you need sleep. So where can we access an opportunity to get you more sleep through your night routine? So you can't change anything without the data first. So the data is available, it's there. You just got to document it, right? So that's one of the things I do with people right from the very beginning. It's just a lifestyle audit, and I'll say, what are you noticing? I'm noticing that I'm really tired in the afternoons between 2 and 4.
Right.
Okay, so what do you think you need at that time? What's possible? Like I'm craving foods, I'm mentally fatigued, whatever it is. And now we have the data to come up with solutions to optimize that moment in the day, right? Like that most stressful, exhausted time of the day could be switched to, you allow yourself restorative time. You allow yourself a half an hour of, sit and drink tea and look out the window or take a nap or something.
Right.
And that is the job. That's what you're supposed to be doing at that time because you just scheduled it. Right. So, and then they realize very quickly how that like converts. Like it's like, I found too, like an hour, like you compare an hour of training in the gym to like 15 minutes of silence or 15 minutes of mobility, like the return on investment is huge in the restorative category.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big point. I think that goes with people's expectations when they want to make changes. Not a lot of people really understand the value and benefit of restorative exercise.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks they have to go hit it hard and they really have to calorie restrict. That's sort of the general message that's just always been out there. But the restorative stuff has tremendous, tremendous benefit. I found for myself, for people that are really busy all the time, there's two sort of deeper issues that maybe won't get into right away.
Yeah.
But with very busy people, I always give them more restorative stuff for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And they naturally feel better, even if their mind says, I've got to do more exercise.
Yeah.
Because they're always in go, go, go mode. That's how they approach their exercise program too. They think it should be that way. So negotiating around that and giving them permission to just let's stretch. There's tremendous value in this because there's so much tension in your body. There's like so much value in this, and educating them on the value of slowing down. But the two deeper issues, one I find that we kind of have to negotiate is learning to establish stronger boundaries between either their job or their spouse or whatever they're committing. But some people that are really busy, they just overcommit.
Yeah.
And they take on too much, and they just have to learn to say no in a stronger way. And learning to shave off even 5 minutes at the end of the workday, when a client's workday is already 10 hours long, and once they learn to do that and they realize the world's not going to fall apart because they didn't work 10 hours, and then all of a sudden you take another 5 minutes off. And then by the end, I had this one guy once, and he was finally leaving work actually half an hour early to come to the gym because his workout, he cut 3 hours off of his workday. The world didn't fall apart. Like in his mind, he had to hold things together. And that's the second issue. There's establishing boundaries, and then there's just control. People that are really, really busy also tend to like to be in control a lot.
Yeah.
And that's how they hold things together. And they've got to overcommit to all these things because they have an idea in their head of how everything has to be. And if it's that way, then I feel safe and in control. And learning, just gradually shifting people away from learning to let go of control, that things will just be fine. It's not a message that I always tell them that's you, but I just subtly every once in a while will just say something around that and let the seeds plant. Because you can't go and say someone to their control freak right away. Obviously the barrier is going to go up, but it's those are just for time management and busyness. Those are the two sort of main issues. It's just learning people either let go of control or just establish stronger boundaries. Like we said, a little bit at a time though. You can't give them too much, or they just they don't buy in, right? But once they buy in a little bit and they notice the benefit, that's when they're more likely to do it on their own. And then back to what you were talking about with restorative exercise and the benefit. As a barrier, just low vitality. I think a lot of people that we see, just their vitality isn't there, right? They've had years and years of not eating and not sleeping and not exercising, and just fatigue.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you negotiate someone who has some goals that are lofty, but you know from your experience and from the information you gather, they just have a low vitality. They're just tired.
Yeah, I find that again, realistic and sustainable, but also getting them to commit to a restorative practice that they can agree on, that allows them to experience the benefits, give you the feedback without them just kind of sabotaging the process. So
Right.
Almost like in the diet, for example, like if you're tracking your calories, if you're tracking your consumption, what you're eating and stuff over the course of the week, and if you're really strict and doing a good job of it, by Friday or Saturday, you might have calories in your weekly target banked. So you can celebrate with, a cheat meal or whatever, and not actually throw yourself off your game, right? You do the same thing with exercise and restorative care as well. Like, if you get every morning these things in, you can train as hard as you want on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Right.
Like almost like we would have to calculate what we think we could say with certainty, right? You get to sleep every night before 10:30. Watch what'll happen by day 3.
Right.
Right. That level of certainty, if they commit to it, you just got to choose the right thing, especially if you see it as the greatest opportunity, the greatest area of potential in their lives. Yeah. And I found that very consistent for me within some of the systems that I use with people that I've seen it so many times that I can say, look, just prioritize this one thing and watch what'll happen. Right. And it's empowering for them to realize that they could do it, because they realize on day 3, I can do this. I'm getting control again. Right. And getting the benefits, but also, it takes so much pressure off of us to try to come up with some complicated plan that they're probably not going to follow anyways. It's going to probably stress them out more. So giving them little simple things that they could do consistently and actually reap the benefits of is pretty key in helping them establish something that won't set them up for failure. Right.
Yeah. I found that for people that just are burnt out, they may have to readjust their goals a little bit in terms of the timelines.
Yeah.
And sometimes even I will just have to take them through a phase that is just nourishing and regenerating over a period of time to recharge the batteries. Like if the batteries are chronically drained, like, if you wake up and your phone is only charged at 10%, how much good is it going to be to you throughout the day, right? Like if you're waking up and you're only at 10 or 20%, but you're still trying to go out there and overachieve or still chronically busy, then you're just going to burn out. You're just going to crap out. So having those phases where they can and giving them permission, but just saying, look, right now you need more energy. This is what you have to do. So we can then build on that, right? Once we recharge your batteries and your sleep and your nutrition and you're understanding the value of restorative work, that becomes a good platform for them to sort of launch from and have more success later on, for sure.
We would have experienced that as well in what we do, or any coach or trainer would experience that when, say, if they break through and get really amazing success with attracting a lot of business, if it's still just you delivering on the business, the more clients you get, also the more life force that requires.
Yeah, it does.
So your stuff better be on point, but you also got to find your own sweet spot. And you may need, now that you have more revenue, you may need to outsource some stuff. You know, outsource your bookkeeping, outsource your social media platforms, outsource your website, like employ other people to handle the stuff that you don't really care to do, that's sucking the life out of you, and focus on the things they're good at. So it's a great problem to have, right? So it's very obvious in business. It's not as obvious in life, in a lifestyle situation, because that is it's come on for so long, right?
Yeah, the slow creep of fatigue.
And the slow creep of these habits and these addictions we've developed in our lifestyles for so long. I know people that are just addicted to chaos. Like they're addicted to their life being completely disorganized and chaotic. And there's nothing that they seem to allow them from changing that. Right. And almost to the point that they like talking about how chaotic their life is. There's a couple things they're getting from it, right? You know, they're getting some attention from it, and there's all these different things going on, right? But you're gonna see, this is what I tell people, you're gonna see it in their body. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you're gonna see it in their body. They'll either be consistently putting on a couple pounds every year.
Yeah.
Their joints will start to break down. You know, take your pick on all the symptoms, that the things that start to come up over time, wear and tear, right?
Yeah. Physical, but also emotional too, right? State of
and
mind.
Emotional. They start to look like they're aging, right? Like aging faster than they should be, right? So like, and I've had people tell me too, they I can't believe what age I am, right? And I'm like, you know, like I'm managing the sweet spot, right? I guess. And I think I've seen it in people before, and sometimes you go through a rough patch, right? And that will age you.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's important to be able to manage these things. I say every 5 years, recalibrate, recalibrate what you can handle, what's realistic for you.
Right. Yeah. Obviously what we could do in our exercise sessions when we were 20. Has definitely we've had to adapt to over the years, for sure. Absolutely. And adjust the expectations accordingly and still be happy with that. Right. Okay, so in terms of barriers, maybe let's talk a little bit about self-sabotage, because this is definitely a common thing where people it's not always conscious either. But so when people take actions that are in direct opposition to what they want to achieve. That's how I would define self-sabotage, whether they're knowingly do it or not knowingly doing it. It's still in opposition to what you want to do. So how do we negotiate people with self-sabotage? Where does that come from? Like, how does that arise, and what do we do? How do we deal with it?
I remember I drew a map for you a while back where I said, here's point A and here's the goal. And then I drew like at first you go directly towards the target. Right. And then you start turning and going around and doing this whole thing. And you actually start moving, you're still moving towards it, but then you actually at one point go completely in the opposite direction of the target. And then circle back because there's some sort of setback or something happens and things are bumping you around. And eventually you find your way, right? I think the blind spots I talk about and things, the subconscious that you mentioned was, it's part of it is the identity. It's unfamiliar. You know, subconsciously, like the old version of you, the 1.0 version of you is sensing change, and change is death of the old self, right? And it's scary, and it goes into a survival mode. So it's like, I'm gonna like go in this weird direction for a little while, and not even really notice that you're doing it until you're actually in it. right? That's also why I think a coach is helpful to navigate. But it's very natural. We all go through it, and I find sometimes that that unknown is what makes us put on the brakes, all of that stuff. And sometimes there is a base camp to end up at, to go, okay, let's get climatized to this. I blew 50 pounds. It's kind of scary, like all the attention I'm getting. Let's hang here. Let's hang here and see if I can maintain this. And
Yeah.
Let's get some new items of clothing and try new suits on, and it's just like, let's take this for a ride for a little bit, right? And then establish what I want to do next, right? Give yourself the space to just celebrate and be that person as you move to the next stage, right? So
Yep.
it's tricky though, because it is a blind spot. It can creep up on you. That's why you can't do this stuff alone, right?
Yeah.
The other people that are observing you will catch that if they're looking for the right thing, right?
Right. Yeah. I think what you talked about there, identity. I mean, it's one of the most fundamentally important things to a human psychology, is to have a sense of self. And when that sense of self breaks down, the old self starts the 1.0. So having to be able to negotiate from a point of view from your new self, and being able to negotiate with your old self.
Yeah.
I do that all the time with myself. Like I'm always, because I don't see, the human mind is very sort of fractured, and there's different parts of you that come out at different moments.
Yeah.
And learning to recognize that, and just talking to my old self, like, hey, it's okay. Like it's time to let go and move on. I can still keep you, in this way throughout my life in this form, but just learning to have that self-talk, and self-dialogue to the different parts of yourself, as if it's a child or a younger version of you or something like that. And then I think also with this self-sabotage, a lot of that I see is around self-worth, for sure. I think some people, they get stuck simply because the deserving of what is good is alien to them.
Yeah.
It really is. And a lot of that can just be conditioning, or, past experiences, like you said, bringing the past forward. But learning to really just, and that's what we can do as coaches, is we can help build that when we see it not there, and celebrate that they really deserve to have that and be that, and it's good, like you should. Right.
Yeah.
Some people, I think I definitely have seen over the years, just shy away from, or that part of them arises where they just don't feel like they deserve it, and it's an unfortunate thing, but I think that's part of where self-sabotage comes from. And then the change, like you said, any change, we're all just inherently resistant to change anyways. And I think the older we get, the more kind of stuck in our ways. It's easier to become stuck in our ways.
Yeah.
Sure. But if the changes are small and consistent, like we talked about earlier, just small little things that you can handle physically and adapt to and psychologically adjust to, then I mean, there's nothing that should stop you, right?
Yeah.
So anything, so blind spots, you were talking about blind spots as a barrier. Is there anything else that you want to add on to that, or?
I would say we covered a lot here. I think there's a lot of information. I would say what anyone viewing this, to go back and ask yourself, what is the one thing that resonates the most from anything we shared here, and maybe start there, right? Because we can have, in a coaching session or just in a conversation, we can unpack a lot of stuff if we're in a safe place. But then at the end, it's like, what do we do? Like, what is the action, if there is one, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it always comes down to, like, what is resonating right now? Like, what sticks out for you right now, right? And just go with, trust that. And you might have the answers right away, or you might need to reach out
Right.
and voice it to somebody and talk it through, and then just focus with the intention of like finding out if there's a step to take, or if there's something you need to do, or if you just needed to get it off your chest and clear it, right?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, there was definitely a ton there. Oh my goodness, it's an hour and 20 minutes we've been chatting for. It goes by fast. Yeah. So is there any thoughts you have? Any sort of closing ideas, or was that it there?
That was pretty much it. Just to share, more. There's more to share. Next week, I'm doing a talk on the 4 pillars of nutrition. It's kind of along the same lines of what we've been talking about here, like simplicity.
Yeah.
And I find nutrition to be really complicated. I'm not even a nutrition expert per se for that reason. I just have no passion to get into the details of that. That's why I have people I refer to. But it's speaking on nutrition from the context of just foundations and just like lifestyle and on the court learning. So I'm excited to share that because I've never recorded it before and presented it in this way before. So I'm excited to share. I did 4 pillars of fitness last month, which was my exercise module. So feel free to check that out. It's on Eventbrite. Look up 4 pillars of nutrition. And that's it. Like, I mean, I have some other offerings. Like I have a holiday special coming up to get people through the first 40 days. A lot of what we've talked about today here, like a lot of this shows up in those first 40 days. So I built out a small package for that to get people started, and they could save it till the new year or whatever they want to do. But I can share my contacts and information with regards to that. So and that's it from me.
Yeah. So if people want to reach you, how can they reach you?
They can connect with me if you go to my website, thedomesticathlete.com. On the landing page there, you'll see a video intro, but also there's a button to click to access your lifestyle optimization score. So you fill out that form, and I'll send back the results and some recommendations. We can spin that into a discovery call if you wish to have a conversation about your situation. That's the quickest and easiest way to access me. You can email me at brian@thedomesticathlete.com as well. And we can begin conversations there. I'll probably still send you the form to fill out because it's so the information is so helpful to get things started. So that's how they can connect with me.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, cool. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was good. Lots of good information. Hopefully there's some viewers in the future that will also see this and get some good info out of it. So yeah, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it. And I guess until the next time, we'll sort out what that topic's going to be. But until then, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Take care.
Cool.